You were never the granddaughter he was proud of. That's what my father said to me, in front of our entire family, while the lawyer was still holding my grandfather's will in his trembling hands. I can still hear the way his voice cut through the room. Cold. Final, almost satisfied. And then the lawyer cleared his throat and read my sister's name. Not mine, hers, after everything I had done, after 10 years of being the one who stayed. So tell me honestly, if you were in my place, would you have just smiled and accepted it, or would you have done exactly what I did next? I guess I should start from the beginning, because nothing about that moment made sense unless you knew the history. My grandfather wasn't just some distant relative. He practically raised me. My mom died when I was 9, and my dad checked out emotionally not long after that. He was physically there, sure, but he buried himself in work and in whatever new woman happened to be in his life at the time. My little sister Lily was 5 years younger than me, and she learned early on that tears got attention. I learned that being useful did. My grandfather moved in with us when I was 12. He had already lost my grandmother, and his health wasn't great. He was stubborn, proud, and painfully old school. He believed in hard work, loyalty, and earning your place in the world. From the very beginning, I gravitated toward him. I'd sit with him at the kitchen table while he drank his black coffee, listening to stories about how he built his construction company from nothing. He used to say I had grit, that I reminded him of himself. Those words meant everything to me. Lily, on the other hand, couldn't stand him. She thought he was strict and boring. She'd roll her eyes whenever he corrected her grammar or told her to put her phone away. As we got older, the gap between us widened. I was the one helping Grandpa sort through his business papers. I was the one driving him to doctor's appointments once I got my license. I was the one who sat by his hospital bed after his first heart attack, holding his hand while my dad paced outside, complaining about insurance, paperwork. When I turned 18, Grandpa officially retired and sold his company for a significant amount of money. I don't know the exact figure, but it was enough that everyone in the family suddenly started paying a lot more attention to him. Cousins who hadn't called in years were suddenly visiting on weekends. My dad, who used to argue with him constantly, became overly agreeable. Lily started posting selfies with him online, captioning them with things like my hero and my inspiration, even though she'd spent most of her teenage years avoiding him. But I didn't change. I was already there. I was already doing the work. I went to a local college instead of moving away because I didn't want to leave him. I studied business, partly because he encouraged me to, partly because I thought one day I'd help manage his investments. Every Sunday we had dinner together. Just the two of us. Sometimes where he'd ask me about my classes and tell me I was going to do great things. He'd say, "You're the only one who understands what I built." So yeah, maybe I assumed something. Maybe I believed that when the time came, he'd recognize the years I gave up for him. When his health started declining for real, I was 24. Lily had already moved to another city with her fiancé. She visited on holidays, posted photos, then left again. I was the one coordinating home nurses. I was the one who argued with doctors. I was the one who slept on the uncomfortable recliner next to his bed when he was too weak to stand on his own. My dad helped financially, sure, but emotionally, physically, that was all me. A few months before he passed, he called me into his room. He looked smaller than I'd ever seen him, but his eyes were sharp. He said, "No matter what happens, you need to keep your head high. You've done more than anyone." I thought that meant something. I thought that was his way of reassuring me that he saw me. He died quietly one morning in early spring. The house felt hollow without him. I grieved deeply, not just because I loved him, but because for so long, he had been the only person who made me feel truly valued. At the funeral, Lily sobbed dramatically into her husband's shoulder. My dad gave a speech about legacy and family. I stood there feeling like a ghost. A week later, we gathered at the lawyer's office for the reading of the will. I wasn't nervous. I wasn't greedy. I just felt calm, secure, like whatever happened would at least reflect the truth of our relationship. The lawyer started with smaller bequests, donations to charities, small amounts to extended relatives. Then he cleared his throat and said the majority of the estate, including the remaining investment portfolio and the lake house, would go to Lily, my sister, the one who barely showed up. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. I must have misheard. But then my dad looked at me with this strange mixture of pity and superiority and said, "You were never the granddaughter he was proud of. Lily had a softness he admired. You were always too intense. For loving him, for staying." I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there numb as the lawyer handed Lily a folder and she squeezed my hand like she'd just won a prize. She didn't even want. But here's the part no one knew at that moment. 3 months before he died, Grandpa had asked me to help him sort through some old documents in his study. While organizing, I noticed a separate sealed envelope tucked into the back of his desk drawer. It had my name on it in his shaky handwriting. He told me not to open it until after the dust settles. I didn't think much of it at the time. I assumed it was sentimental. That night after the will reading, I went home, locked my bedroom door, and opened the envelope. Inside was a handwritten letter and a smaller document that made my hands tremble. In the letter, he wrote that he knew the family would fight over his money. He said he deliberately left the public majority to Lily because he wanted to see who people really were when they thought they'd won. But he also wrote that he had set up a private trust years ago, one that my father didn't know about, a trust in my name. He explained that the trust contained a significant portion of the original sale from his company, invested quietly and separately. The document enclosed had the contact information for a financial advisor and instructions on how to claim it. The amount listed was life-changing, more than what Lily had just inherited publicly. I sat there shaking, reading his words over and over. Pride isn't about softness, he wrote. It's about strength. And you, my girl, have always been strong. So that's the situation I was in. My entire family believed I'd been publicly rejected. My sister thought she had won. My father thought I'd been deemed unworthy, and I was holding proof that none of that was true. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to pause for a second and think about it. If you were me, would you immediately reveal the trust and humiliate them, or would you let them sit in their assumptions? Comment below what you would have done, because I wrestled with that choice for days. In the end, I decided not to say anything. Not at first. Over the next few weeks, Lily transformed. She talked nonstop about her lake house. She started planning renovations, bragging on social media about stepping into her inheritance era. My dad suddenly treated her like she was the golden child. He'd make little comments to me like, maybe if you'd been more affectionate, things would have been different. Each word stung, but I kept my face neutral. Meanwhile, I contacted the financial advisor listed in Grandpa's letter. Everything checked out. The trust was real, legally airtight, and entirely mine. It was structured in a way that no one could contest it. Grandpa had been 10 steps ahead of everyone. About 2 months later, Lily invited the family to the lake house for a celebration weekend. She gave a toast about honoring Grandpa's legacy and keeping the family close. I almost laughed at the irony. My dad gave me a pointed look as if to say, "See, this is what he wanted." After dinner, when everyone was tipsy and relaxed, Lily started talking about selling the house. She said it was too much responsibility, and that she and her husband could use the cash for a bigger place in the city. My dad nodded approvingly. "Smart girl," he said. That's when I decided it was time. I stood up, heart pounding, and said I had something to share too. The room went quiet. I pulled out copies of the trust documents and Grandpa's letter. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't accuse anyone. I just read his words aloud, especially the part about pride and strength. You could have heard a pin drop. Lily's face went pale. My dad's mouth literally fell open. When I finished, I calmly explained that while I was happy Lily had received the lake house, I would not be contributing to any family investments or loans, as I had been privately entrusted with managing my own inheritance. The shift in the room was instant. Suddenly I wasn't the rejected granddaughter. I was the one holding the real power. My dad tried to laugh it off, saying Grandpa must have changed his mind at the last minute. I handed him the dated paperwork showing the trust had been established years ago. Lily accused me of lying, of manipulating Grandpa when he was sick. That's when I revealed the advisor had records of meetings going back nearly a decade, long before his final illness. The celebration ended early. In the weeks that followed, the dynamic in my family changed permanently. My dad stopped making comments about pride. Lily stopped posting about inheritance. I used part of the trust to start my own business, something Grandpa and I had talked about for years. I named it after him, not out of spite, but out of gratitude. We don't have big family dinners anymore. Things are polite, distant. There's an unspoken understanding now that I know the truth, and so do they. Looking back, I realized the real inheritance wasn't the money. It was the lesson. Grandpa knew exactly how our family operated. He knew who showed up and who performed. And in the end, he made sure I knew that he saw me. So was I wrong for waiting? For letting them believe their version of the story before revealing mine? Maybe, but I don't regret it. Sometimes the most powerful move isn't shouting your worth. It's knowing it quietly until the right moment. If you were on my side, like this video, if you think I should have handled it differently, tell me why in the comments. And if you want more stories about family drama, betrayal, and the kind of revenge that doesn't require raising your voice, make sure you subscribe. Share your final thoughts on this whole mess below. I read more comments than you think. I'll see you all in the next story.